Okay. Oh, we're recording. Hang on, I have to click something. Okay, I got it. So you already know what the point is.
Yes, though the person who offers it read A Course in Miracles and is very versed into a lot of, she knows Choose Again, she knows attitudinal healing, she knows the Course in Miracles. So that's where, oh yeah, I'm thinking that would be beneficial.
Well, then it will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't see the benefit in it, it won't be. You'll be sitting there like staring blankly at the screen, wondering what we're all doing. But do you have a copy of the course?
Oh, the Course in Miracles?
Yeah, you have a book?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, cool. That's all you need. So, all right, Ida, hello. You're outside somewhere by the look of it.
Yes, I am outside. Do you want to see?
Wow, that's nice. Yeah, go on, show us where you live. Let's have a look at your view.
Oh, well, you know, this is Venice, and here's almost
Venice?
sunset over there.
Like Venice in Italy? Italy, Venice?
No, Los Angeles, Venice.
Oh.
You see the sunset?
I don't need to see it. I've been to the real Venice. Kind of a downer. Very nice. Rooftop. Yeah.
Rooftop, baby.
That's cool. It's like a pagoda thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to turn this light. I have this light in my face. That's better for me. I don't know about you guys. So Heidi, you're good. Anna, you're good. Lisa, we haven't got to you. Dean's good. Michelle's sitting there wondering what's going on. Travis, you haven't had a go. Ida and Doug. Do the next one, Travis. How was your camping thing you guys went on? That looked pretty radical, some of those places. I saw some of the photos.
Oh, camping, that's just regular life.
That's where we live.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
In our
bizarre.
camper.
Living the dream, baby.
People live out there. It's like
No, that's just in Sedona. That's what Sedona looks like. That's where we're building.
I thought you guys had gone like on a mobile home trek out into the like, you know.
No, just down the road, like half
cool.
hour.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. That's just down the road.
Yeah.
It's just in our backyard where we're building.
Yes.
All right. So I'm on.
All right, Travis, before you read it, take a breath. A deep breath. Sit up straight in your chair for a second. Yep, that's it. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Ask the Holy Spirit to be with you. Like find that. This is your turn. Breathe.
God's voice speaks to me all through the day. There is not a moment in which God's voice ceases to call on my forgiveness to save me. There is not a moment in which his voice fails to direct my thoughts, guide my actions, and lead my feet. I am walking steadily on toward truth. There is nowhere else I want to go, because God's voice is the only voice and the only guide that has been given to his son. God's voice speaks to me all through the day.
You know you're that son, right?
Yeah.
So, say no. No, I don't know that.
I believe I do.
Somewhere in there you do.
Yeah. And there's another one back there hanging on. No.
Right, exactly. Ready? So let's read that again, and not what do you call it? Not acknowledge the other one hanging on. I want you to let go. It's time to like really, really open up. Take a deep breath. You already know there's something in there hanging on. Now you've got to make a new choice, a new decision. I don't want to hang on. I don't want there to be that there in me anymore. I can't walk with Christ hanging on, because this is a roller coaster. He's going over those hills, up and down from Jerusalem and Nazareth down to the Dead Sea, pick up a few guys here and there. And, you know, it's like, come on, Travis, you're coming. You're already forgiven, bro.
God's voice speaks to me all through the day.
There it is.
There's not a moment in which God's voice ceases to call on my forgiveness to save me. There is not a moment in which his voice fails to direct my thoughts, guide my actions, and lead my feet. I am walking steadily on toward truth. There is nowhere else I could go, because God's voice is the only voice and the only guide that has been given to his Son. God's voice speaks to me all through the day.
Do the next one.
I am sustained by the love of God. As I listen to God's voice, I am sustained by his love. As I open my eyes, his love lights up the world for me to see. As I forgive, love reminds me that his Son is sinless. And as I look upon the world with the vision he has given me, I remember that I am his son. I am sustained by the love of God.
It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? I am his son. Like, really, come on. I'm the Son of God. Just for a second, join me in how ridiculous that sounds. Let's find the disbelief, because that's where it's hanging on. When I read that, there's just like this, how could that possibly be true? How could that possibly be true? I'm going to need some kind of a miracle to show me that that's actually true. Otherwise, I'm just going to be sitting with it in my head as an idea and telling myself that that's probably the way it is because Jesus tells me the way it is. But it's not going, doesn't mean that that's the way that I actually know it to be about myself. All of you guys, that's where I want you to stay in this for a second, right? It's not like we come from representing the denial, suddenly pick up a book and then we're all good. It's like there's 365 lessons in that book. And it says in that book, this is just the beginning. It's like if you were to travel to India, you know, you'd find like plenty of lower caste guys just sitting on their ass their whole life, meditating and begging and doing all that thing. They don't have this book. They've had it hand me down first, second, third, fourth, fifth hand, you know, from their teacher, their teacher, their teacher, their teacher, and so it goes. And they hope they get a clear rendition of what the actual teachings are. You know, here we've got it written down. Here it's in lesson form. All we got to do is apply it. But before we can apply it, that first block, right? That first block that says the desire to get rid of peace. Jesus wouldn't tell us that that block to get rid of peace is in us unless he actually meant it. I need to find that block. You know, all of those blocks. That needs to be my active engagement with this course. I'm not worried about that God tells me I'm his son. What the hell? I don't even know what that really means. But I know that I can actually do the work. I can get into that. That's tangible. I can put my pointy little brain into gear and look at actually where I'm at with things if I'm honest. right? And being at a place where I'm at with things conceptually, that doesn't cut the cheese, or is it the mustard? That it doesn't cut it. You know, it's like, I need to have an experience. For me to be able to have an experience, I need to be able to give the Holy Spirit what it is he's asking for in me, which is my willingness to forgive. Okay? Like Jesus says, just a little willingness. I have no clue what a little willingness is. What's a big willingness? What's a little, you know, everybody, if you ask someone who'd had an easy life, they'd probably tell you a little willingness, no problem. Or someone who's had a hard life and they find it hard to trust people, that little willingness is going to seem like a big stretch, you know? So it's kind of relative in that regard, but you got to find your own place where just for a second, you're willing to look at the idea that maybe you're the problem. Not that the problem is something separate from me. It's like the Course teaches one problem, one solution. I think I'm separate from God, but the solution is that I'm not. Now, how do I get from the idea that I think I'm separate from God to I'm not? That's going to be a miracle. All right. Literally a miracle. Me trying to work it out in here, that's nothing. You know? That's the hard, you know, where you sort of like go, oh man, because like the last thing I want for any of you guys is to be reading this book in 20 years time and still not having had an experience. And I know guys that have done that. I know guys that still read this book. I know guys that have this book and pick it up and do the lessons 20 years in a row. You know, still nothing has happened for them. All for the want of being a little bit honest and saying, all right, I see that I don't get it. All right. I have no clue what it is when Jesus tells me that I'm God's son. How can I? He's telling me I'm the denial of that. He's telling me that I'm the one that's putting the blocks in place to the recognition and the realization of that. So therefore, I'm just going to have to trust that Jesus knows what he means when he tells me that, and that I don't know what he means when he tells me that. Because that's more honest than saying, yeah, I think I know that that's the truth about me, right? I know perfectly well, somewhere in your mind, you do know that that's the truth about you, but we're on the other side of that, getting to it. We're on like the veil, you know, he talks about the veil of illusion. The veil is here and we're back behind it here somewhere. And when you have these meditative moments, Donna knows this one, she's had a few of these. When you have these meditative moments and you go deep enough, you get this little kind of click and everything, or it's like a little shift in consciousness. And everything changes. Everything changes. All of a sudden, you're like out of your body, or you have a light experience, or something crazy goes on, right? It's out of the accord, out of the norm with what normally happens, or what your ego mind will allow you to entertain, because it has no foothold in that domain, right? Now, in this moment, because this is the only moment there is. Right? It's not going to happen in the future. In this moment, God is holding out a golden ticket to you and saying, Lisa, Michelle, Dave, Ida, Doug, everybody, just take it. There's no conditions. Just take it. Here it is. Here is your full inheritance handed to you. I can't make it any more obvious. You have to admit to yourself you don't want it. That's the first block. I don't know why I'm doing this course. I don't even want it. You've got to find that in your own mind. All right. And I remember sitting on the couch one day with my wife, and she suddenly burst into tears. We'd been reading the course and doing stuff. She suddenly burst into tears and then started laughing, tears, and then started laughing. She had the penny drop moment where she'd been reading the course for like a year or whatever it was, and she suddenly realized she didn't want God. And in that whole 12 months, that was the most honest moment she'd had. Right? Then we can start. Then something happens. So it's like for each of us, I don't know what it takes to crack that threshold, to crack that kind of like energetic defense right? Where the concepts become your way of life, because the concepts are nothing. Salvation is freedom from concepts, all right? The concepts are nothing. This Zoom meeting is about experience. If we're not going to sit here together and have an experience, then what are we doing? We can go anywhere and just read the book. You know, this is where what we read in the book, we allow to affect us. We allow, because it will. Otherwise, we wouldn't be reading it. We wouldn't have a need for the lessons. Somewhere, however dimly, we recognize that something in here is for us. Something in this book, something in these lessons is for us. It resonates. We pick it up and we go, holy cow, I need to do this. I want this in my life, or whatever it is, right? And if you're like me, maybe you throw it away a few times and, you know, it'll just keep coming back. It'll just keep coming back. It's like you don't stumble across something like this by accident. But then the whole point of it is to be able to pick it up and use it, to be able to pick it up, do those lessons, and allow yourself to be affected by what you read on those pages. You know, it's like the heart space. It's got to open. The mind, the heart have to join together. The mind makes the decision. The heart has all the passion in the universe there. But you've got to allow it to occur. And like, I don't know what the catalyst is for anyone. I really have no clue. Something is going to be the catalyst for that activation. Something, and it may well be in these lessons. But you've got to be honest with where it is you're at on this side of the veil when Jesus tells you, you are the Son of God. And it's like, all right, well, I have no clue what that means. Then you can be shown. I don't think that's true for me, right? Then you can find out that perhaps it is true for you. It's like, otherwise it's just all that ego, you know, that temporal chatter in there is going to give you some kind of a reference for what that could possibly mean and for how that's relevant to you, all right? But in this moment where we, let's say, I don't like the word surrender particularly, but where we're willing to enter into that total surrender for a moment, none of our thoughts about it, including mine, mean a thing. What am I going to take into this moment? You know, if let's say God was a tangible entity on the earth, even like, you know, like what the hell are you going to say to Jesus even? You know, if Jesus said, come for dinner, that me and the disciples are meeting at my friend's house for bread and wine tonight, come along. What the hell would you say to him? You know, you've just seen the guy raise the dead. You've just seen him multiply the loaves and the fishes and do all of that stuff. It's like that dumbfoundedness. It's like all of a sudden you're invited to dinner. It's like, just be quiet. You know, just be quiet, just listen. So when you read the course, it's the same thing. Jesus is telling me I'm the Son of God, right? But literally it's going to take an experience. It's going to take a miracle, literally, to bring about an experience. You can call that a transcendental or a no body, no world experience, whatever you want to call it. It's literally going to take a miracle to bring about the experience of that. And I'm going to fight it all the way. And I'll tell myself I'm not fighting it. Oh no, I'm reading the book, I'm doing the lessons, I'm this, I'm going to Zoom meetings, I'm doing all this stuff. But actually, the whole reason that I have those lessons is because I am in resistance to what's being offered. Otherwise, I would just accept it without the necessity to bloody have to do the lessons at all. You know, God's not preventing me from finding me. You know, God's not withholding forgiveness. God's not, like it said in that lesson we just read, God doesn't forgive because God does not condemn. It's me. You know, I've got to put my finger on my nose and take total responsibility for what it is I think I am, right? And accept the fact that I think that I am that. Otherwise, I'm using denial inappropriately. You know, deny the denial, but don't deny that I am the denial. So it's like for a second, and when I say a second, it's like in time and space, the second can look like anything, you know, but for a second, I'm going to allow myself to undergo this transition. I'm going to allow myself to go through this rite of passage, or this bridging mechanism that we're calling A Course in Miracles, because I want something to occur in me that is not of my own making, and in a way where I can understand that when it occurs, what it actually means to me, what it represents, which is my divinity, my holiness, my perfection, my innocence. All right? So you got to realize, firstly, I'm the liar. It's like biblically, Jesus says, you're the liar and the son of a liar. And it's like, all right, let me be the liar then, because at least that's honest. Even if I don't want to admit that I'm the liar, it's like if you go to AA, you know, you have to be able to admit you're an alcoholic before you can begin the program. If you can't admit that, then there's no point doing the program, because that admission opens the door to vulnerability. That admission opens the door to like-mindedness with everybody in the room. There's no specialness. All of a sudden, we're all on the same level here. You know, it's like, Heidi, that's exactly your thing too. Okay. I mean, it's everybody's thing, but that idea of being special in one way or another, it's like, it's one of the mechanisms of separation. You know, there's a point where you realize it. There's a point where you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, oh man, I'm so full of shit. And that becomes a happy place, right? That becomes a place where finally you're honest with yourself. Finally, you're done with your own nonsense, and something else can occur then, all right? So when we're reading these lessons, let Jesus be right about what he says, and like, let me just step back for a second and go, I don't really know what that means. Okay, that's honest. Then you can be shown. The whole point of like lesson 10, my thoughts don't mean anything. We're learning not to use our thinking in a way not only that continues to corrupt our best interests and sabotage our happiness, but also in a way where we're not using our best thinking to try and interpret what we think these lessons are that are trying to help us attain our best interests. Does that make sense? It's like we're going to drag, right? We're going to drag our bad, dirty laundry, our bad, dirty habits into the course. So that's unavoidable, right? Unavoidable. You bring your lumps and bumps and all your bits with you, right? But we're going to drag that into the course. When we do the lessons, those lumps and bumps and bits are going to be with us while we're doing the lessons. But the ego would like try to fabricate this kind of veneer of spirituality that it thinks is what you want. And because you're habituated to listening to that ego referencing that goes on in your mind about I'm a body this and I'm doing that and I eat this sort of food and all of the, because you're habituated to listening to that way of thinking, you listen to that way of thinking in relationship to the course, right? And it literally takes a miracle to transition through that undoing process to get you to stop listening to that and actually hear what's being said. So it's like, Wendy, when I said to you, read that again, because I could hear that you were actually starting to feel that thing. And then when you read it that second time, it got in. Okay. What made that occur? I have no clue. Obviously, the little willingness, right? But like for you guys, a little willingness for Wendy might be a lot more willingness for Travis. It depends on your energetic association that you have with the atonement. Okay. Jesus had to go and sit in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights without food and water and the whole thing. He was either like, you know, who's that guy that sits in the ice, and breathes? I know Dean knows who it is, the Wim Hof, Jesus was like the desert dwelling Wim Hof that could just go and do mind over matter. And We're not even asked to do that. We're just asked to do one lesson a day. One little lesson a day. All right. So when we're doing those lessons, try to be aware of that veneer. Try to be aware of that falsity that wants to put itself ahead of actually feeling what's being read, because we all have it. We all display it. We all know it. And you'll feel incredibly awesome when you see that action in yourself and you get to choose again not to do that, because you'll let something in and you'll feel awesome about it. All right. Same for you, Doug. Same thing. All right. The whole thing plays out differently for everybody, but in becoming aware of our defensive nature, in becoming aware of when we're reading the book but not connecting with it, it's like every single one of those lessons should like hit you right in the heart. It should hit you right in the, I mean, look at Tina. She's just like barely able to keep her body going there. You know, every single one of those lessons should be like a handshake with the Messiah. It's like literally. It's like, imagine if Jesus walked up to you, it was your turn to read the lesson and you read it and he just shook you by the hand. That's how it should make you feel. Those lessons are like, you know, it's like the hardest thing I ever try to get across or ever try to express. And so many really good teachers throughout history have expressed this exact same thing, is how you know, it's like that old saying, youth is wasted on the young. When you get older, you see how you've squandered your youth. It's like, if you knew what was being held out to you in this moment, you would fall on your face to receive it. You would jump off a cliff to receive it. You would do whatever it took. It is beyond imagining how profound and how beautiful and how holy it is. And it's in you right now. It's like somewhere Jesus is offering you a key. You're the lock. You've decided to lock yourself away in this tiny little third dimensional paradigm of nothingness to die again and again and again and again. Jesus is going, you don't have to do that anymore. No one's blaming you for anything. Just come on home. You know, it's like the prodigal son. Just come on home, right? Here's the key. You've got the key and you're waving it around. Put it in the damn lock. Put it in the lock. Turn it. Don't be a seeker. Be a finder, right? But you've got to realize where it is that you're being the seeker, right? There's plenty of references in the Course where Jesus is telling you that you're a seeker and that you don't really want to find. When, Holy Son of God? How long? How long are you going to take? Right? I'm only expressing this from the certainty of my mind that it doesn't take time. It's like, I'd hate for it to get to the point where, you know, it's like, let's do some breathing. Just take a few deep breaths. Everyone close your eyes for a second. Lisa, close your eyes. You've got some good energy happening there. You've got some good light around you. Hey, there's Kevin. Donna, I think your friend's left us. I can't see her on the screen. That's cool. Close your eyes, take a few deep breaths. And as you're breathing, like this is always the case, right? So this is always the case whenever, you know, that saying familiarity breeds contempt. If you've been doing this course for a while, familiarity breeds contempt is the status quo. Just let that be true for a second, all right? So it takes an extra effort or an extra moment of honesty to connect. right? Because the ego will corrupt even your own best interests. So take a few deep breaths and just try to remind yourself how important this is to you. All right? How badly you want to take Jesus' hand. How grateful you are to have these lessons, all of these sorts of things, because it'll keep you grounded. It'll keep you in your body and you won't go astral. All right? Try to feel it. Not in your mind, not in your thoughts. Try to feel it in your heart. I had an experience once of, we'll do a light session in a minute, but I had an experience once of, I can't remember what it was that was troubling me. It was something really deep. I've been doing the course for a couple of years and I was living at the healing center, and Christopher and Adele, who were the administrators at the center, had the cabin at the end. There was like 6 or 7 cabins there. And hang on, I'm just going to move this thing. Oh, I've been looking at the idea of all the disciples leaving Jesus in the final moment, just like turning away from him, and him knowing that that would happen, him knowing that that was what was going to occur, you know, before the cock crows 3 times, Peter, blah, blah, blah. Right. So, and if you haven't read the New Testament, I highly recommend it. But I was looking at that idea of turning away from Jesus, right? Having got the course in my hot little hands, having read those lessons and everything being explained so beautifully and simply to me, it's like the idea of turning away from this was impossible. Why would I do that? It all makes sense now. Even if I was up there beside him on the next cross, it all makes sense. And he's not asking me for that. He's not asking me for he's like his crucifixion. That's the last one done. All right. But it all made sense. So I didn't see the, when he was telling me that I was the denial, that I was the problem, right? Because of the beliefs I maintained in separation. It's like, how can that even be possible? I don't want it to be possible. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't the running program that was going on in the background, right? It was. And I remember I went to see Christopher and Adele. Hey, newcomers, howdy. I went to see Christopher and Adele. It was like 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, and they were sitting in their armchairs. They were an elderly couple in their probably early 70s, I guess, at that time, and or 60s, early 60s. And they were watching the cricket. And I walked in, and no one ever used to close their doors there, you know. I just walked in and I stood behind them in their armchairs, you know, like watching the cricket with them for a second. And I knew Adele was very perceptive. I knew Adele could tell that something was troubling me. I could feel her energy. I knew she wanted to respond to me being there and the whole thing. And she said, just take a deep breath, something like that. Anyway, she said, take a breath or you know, just kneel down here. And she held my hand. In the moment she held my hand, everything vanished out. Everything disappeared. And I was looking at my own feet, which were clad in sandals, leather sandals, right? I was looking down at my feet. And as I looked up, there's this wooden beam in front of me. Now, this, if you've ever had a true vision, if you've ever had a transcendental vision, like like during the, not on drugs, not on any of that stuff, just like a full-on given vision, right? It's as real as this seems to be sitting here now, okay? It's exactly as real as this, like changing the channel on TV. There was a wooden beam going up, and as I let my gaze go up the wooden beam, there were 2 feet overlapped, and there was a big nail. And in that moment, I realized that I had turned away. I had. It was shown to me in that way. Otherwise, I would have been up there. Who is with this man? And they all turned away. Aren't you one of his disciples? No, 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 you're mistaken. It's not me. So it's a pivotal point It's a pivotal point in the course to realize my own responsibility, not only to my own atonement, but in being honest about the fact that it's my denial that has even brought to me the necessity for the particulars of doing this course and accepting atonement for myself in the first place. All right. Now, if you can see that as a helpful thing and not as something to feel guilty about, that's a good step. All right. Now you have a quest. Now you've got a real tangible quest. I'm going to find my block. All right. I'm going to find my block. Jesus says in the course, seek for your blocks and find them. He doesn't say they're there, but don't worry about them. He says this is a journey into fear. Seek for those blocks and find them. Right? Now, for me to be able to find my blocks, I have to be open to my reflections. I have to be open to whatever's presented to me in the relationships that I find myself in. Right? And it's really easy to do that if you can understand that you're always talking to God. Right? Every question you have, every relationship you're in a relationship with God. This is a divine romance. It's the most beautiful thing. When you start to see it, it's the most beautiful thing. God speaking to me through this person, that person, that person, that person, that person. And there has only ever been my own good offered to me, despite the fact that I want to judge it, pigeonhole it, and decide whether it actually could be maybe good for me or maybe not, based on what it is that I think that my goals are that I've chosen, which is always going to be death, because that's the running program going on in the background, right? Which the course is here to replace. Not replace as in we'll take the old one out and put the new one in, replace as in let's do the work of reinterpreting those defenses and repenting, turning around and facing into the light and make our way back the way we came back to the teeny tiny doorway that got us into this mess in the first place, which is buried in our minds somewhere. All right. But we've got to reconnect with our heart space to do that. All right. I love you guys. I can't even tell you how much I love you guys. Like, it's beyond my ability to say in words. There are no words for it. Hey, Terry. Wesley and Angie, do you guys have a cat? Hey.
Sorry, I'm late.
You're not late. You arrived at the perfect time and appointed time you're meant to be here.
Beautiful.
I know, right? It's so beautiful. So it's like, let's be about doing our work. Forget about the lessons for a second. Forget about A Course in Miracles. Forget about everything. Let's find some honesty here. You know, Michelle, let's find some honesty. Let's look for the blocks. I had one presented to me the other day. Somebody wrote back to me and said, keep your darkness away from me, something like that. It's like, and I, like, literally, I could have sworn that I was offering something helpful to the conversation because I could see in it where I thought someone else was doing something that was upsetting them, and I took my finger off my nose for a second and I thought it was not me. You know, it's hilarious. It's really funny. It's like, oh, missed that opportunity. And then the next thing that comes is this thing is like, man, you're really dark. I don't want to be around you right now, blah, 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 and keep that dark energy of yours away from me. It's like, hang on a minute, I'm talking about forgiveness. How can that be really dark? And it's like, because I'm projecting out there that someone else needs it and not taking it on board for myself in that moment that I see the denial. I'm just extending darkness of my mind, not the light of my mind. You know, what an asshole. Why would I do that? Right? It's like, unless I'm asked, unless somebody actually asks, it's like, who is there that needs healing? And if somebody does ask, then it's a reciprocal, you know, like the healer and the healed are not separate. I'm not separate from what I think I see. It's like, well, I love Joel Goldsmith. You know, I think I've told you guys this story a few times now, but Joel Goldsmith would just sit in his practitioner's office practicing psychotherapy, and people would come and he wouldn't say a damn thing. He would just sit there and let them tell their story, and he would just hold it in his own heart and mind that he was listening to himself. This was his mind talking to him. He was being offered something, not them. And then he would process whatever the story was or whatever the thing presented. He would process it internally as if it was his own, because it was his own. Right? He would have the healing, not the imagery in his dream. He would have the healing. And then like 6 months later, people would write back to him and go, I don't know what happened that day in your office, but something changed and now everything's good. You know, it's like, truly, that's a miracle. But it's not a miracle when you see that it's just really the natural, it's the way things are. You know, when you're in denial, it's a miracle. It's like, holy cow, how did that happen? How did I heal from that cancer? Simply because I changed my mind about wanting it in the first place. Why would I want cancer? Because I'm crazy. Because I don't know what I'm getting into. Because I didn't know what it was. Because I made a bad decision, or I think I did. I chose to take on board a belief that was false about myself. And from that sprang a whole myriad of deadness. You know, a whole failed crop of ideas. So when we do our light session in a minute, Angie and Wesley, can you guys turn on your camera? This is a full participative thing we've got going on here. I know you have a picture up, but we'll get Tina onto you. There we go. There they are. Awesome. Thank you. You guys listening while doing other things. Love the attempt. Oh yeah, well, you know, you can eat. So before we do our light session, before we do our thing, just for a moment, when you ask the Holy Spirit to abide with you, right? When you're asking to connect to your higher mind, you have to ask because you're the one that's denied it, right? It has to be of your own free will, right? Ask to be able to identify the block. Okay? Because if you can't identify it, if it's not something that you can grasp conceptually and understand in your own mind, you're not going to be able to forgive yourself for the reasons you think you needed to make that manifest in the first place, right? If you're reading the course, obviously, you know that's because you thought you could do a better job of this than God, or I could do a better job of this than God. But it'll play out in the relationships. It'll play out in the world. And you'll see that the removal of the block in your own mind occurs through the change in those relationships that will now return to you peace and love and happiness, whereas before there was drama, struggle, and whatever, and you feel like you had to run away. So take a few breaths and just let it be okay. Let it be okay that, yes, let it be okay that your quest is to find the blocks. And we're just going to look at that first one, the idea that I want to get rid of peace, that I don't really want it, right? Now, if you can look at these, Ted used to call them ring pass knots. If you can look, you know what a ring pass knot is, where you have a long bit of rope and there's a knot and then there's a ring and you can't get it past the knot. You've got to work out how to get the ring, right? It can't happen without a miracle. But if you look at these things, you're going along, bam, there's a block, right? The first one is that I desire to get rid of peace. It undoes that knot in your own timeline. It undoes that knot in your own association. Okay, and allows you to move on to the next, Now, I don't know that they're in any particular order, right? So in the course, Jesus puts them as block 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the last block is believing that there actually could ever be one, right? But because we find ourselves in denial, we use that idea to look at the power of our mind in making manifest the situations we find ourselves in, to see that we are powerful. And that decision is the power of our choice, or the power of our choice. You know, it's our decision to make. So in looking for our blocks, it doesn't matter particularly which one you get shown, right? The desire to get rid of peace, the belief the body's valuable, the fear of death, the fear of God, whatever. I've had experiences in my own mind where I thought I'd actually confronted it and healed it and whatever particular block I was looking at, only to realize that it came back again later in another form, which showed me that I either didn't go deep enough or wasn't sincere enough in my prayer about it, or that maybe I was misguided in my efforts there, you know, like I wasn't really honest. So in looking for the block, maybe for a second, don't try to decide what block you're looking for. Just be willing to be shown it, right? Where am I holding love at bay? Where is it that I'm using the power of my mind to build a defense against someone, to judge someone or something? Because that will be the catalyst for whatever the block is that it's going to bounce off. All right? It'll go down, 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 down. You'll see, oh, that person that I held a grievance with last week, or that situation that I didn't get the better of, or whatever it is, something that upsets you. And it may only be a little sigh, the tiniest little sigh of discontent. Right? Allow that to show you what the block is. Okay. You guys call them my triggers or my buttons, you know, that you push. You get triggered by things or whatever. We're not here to heal the situations that represent the triggers. We're here to heal our minds of the blocks that the triggers represent. Does that make sense? We're going deep. We're doing those deep dives. We're going down into the murky stuff. And any of you guys who've ever been down into the murky stuff, you know how horrible it is down there. There's murderous, bloodthirsty thinking, and there's all sorts of like, oh my God, and horrific. It's really bad, right? I'm not telling you have to look at the really bad stuff. You just have to be willing to go down there, to feel it, just to allow that up. You don't have to identify it, right? It'd be pretty unfair if someone who'd been through a traumatic experience had to relive it visually, whatever. But that emotional package that is the manifestation of the block has to be let go, has to be released. And for that, you're going to have to revisit it for a second. Okay. And we do that by heart and mind together, by imagining ourselves. Like some of those lessons are so beautiful like that. Jesus will say, imagine me reaching my hand out to you through the clouds, take my hand, you know. So you're using that power of imagination and trying to get a sense of how that would feel and connect with that heart and mind together to do the work. Okay. You can do it just in mind, but it's eventually going to take you to the heart, because everything, that emotional bundle, that emotional block, and all blocks have an emotional content, that emotional block is where we're at, right? It's not like I have an emotional block, because I am one with all things. I am the state. I am the emotional block. I am the denial. And I'm going to play that part so that I can avail myself of what's offered as the alternative of it. Right? I'm going to go down into my basement, pick up a whole bundle of that emotional energy, or a whole bundle of that storytelling, if you want to use the story. I'm going to pick up all my stories that contain emotions, and I'm going to offer them to the Holy Spirit up here for healing. I'm going to offer the darkness to the light. Right? Jesus says, give me your troubles, give me your burdens, not just leave them there and pretend they don't exist. Right? Life is tough. Life on earth. It's like, oh my God. Ida, oh my God. How often do you crawl into bed at night and go, oh, lay this body down. Oh, it's like, that's a true thing. Right. Nodding her head. Right. That's your bundle. That's your energetic package. That, oh, there's a whole emotional history around that. There's a whole emotional history of how tough life is. Offer that to God. Offer that for healing. Jesus says to you, give it to me. I'll take care of it for you. Just give it to me. Right? You don't want it really, do you? Really? You're still going to use all that crap as a fist-waving defensive mechanism so you can, oh, the course doesn't work for me. It works for other people, but it doesn't seem to be working for me. You know, violin. This is about honesty. It's like, let me look at it. It's like, I hate my life. It sucks. Even the good stuff, it doesn't last. If you can't see that yet in your own mind, it's like all of that. It's like the reason I have these 365 lessons is because somewhere I recognize a necessity for them. That necessity is backdropped as what you term life to be. That necessity is backdropped against what you call my life or my life experience, right? My life experience has gotten to the point where it's so shit, I need a Course in Miracles to bring about something else to occur. Now, you may not recognize the depth of that yet in your own particulars, but I'm telling you, that's how it actually is. One of the things that's helpful is to turn on the television. Look at the world. Don't run away off into the mountains or go to a monastery or whatever. Look at the world. Go and stand beside the freeway and see how ridiculous it is. I remember a beautiful thing that Dalai Lama wrote or said in a talk. And I actually met the Dalai Lama once. It's a funny story as well. But anyway, won't get into that one. But a thing, and he said, people go to work to buy the things, cars, houses, whatever, get mortgages and whatever, so they can continue to go to work to pay for these things that they don't even want and they don't really even need in the first place. You know? But we all do it. We all engage in this structure of refusing to accept the simplistic nature of living a life in God. We've got to complicate everything so much. It's like keep it simple, stupid. It's one of the concepts of AA or NA. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep your life simple. The whole reason that you finally hit here with the course is because somehow in here you've twisted it around so badly that it's become so confusing and so overwhelming that when you turn on the TV, you can't laugh. And you'll have every excuse why you can't laugh. Well, those are little children being blown up in Ukraine, you know, and how can you laugh at that? Those kids in Africa, blah. And you'll think of a million excuses not to laugh. But laughter is literally the best medicine. You can't help those kids in Ukraine right now. You can't help those kids in Africa right now. But you can laugh away all that emotional energy that would cause you to become a burden to yourself and to them, and present yourself as your own awakening, as the complete solution. Now that's tough because it means looking at all those emotions and all those meanings that you've given everything and letting it go. And your ego is going to fight you. You can't do that. That's not socially responsible. Says who? If the world is just a dream, if it's all an illusion, who are you going to be socially responsible to? Right? You really got to keep your finger on your own nose here. So I need to look at my life and see that it all ends in death. Doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter my best strategy, my best financial planning. It's all just a 6-foot hole and a pine box at the end. Now, it's that or it's Jesus or, you know, salvation. Where that drops in, where that realization dawns on your mind, depends on basically how done you are with the world when Jesus says, give up the world and follow me. You know, and that's what I'm just telling you in this whole thing. It's like, be honest, look at it. Just look at it. When Jesus tells me something, is that actually how it is for me? Because if it's not, I've still got time left in me. And if I've still got time left in me, then there's blocks, right? Otherwise, I'm just illuminated already, extending the light of my mind, and there's not a problem in the world. I couldn't even tell you what a problem is. I haven't had a problem for 2 decades. I don't even know how to define a problem. Everything's just a flow. Everything's just a way. Whatever comes in front of me is not a problem. It's part of the flow. It's part of the way. It's a lesson or a blessing. But I'm not going to allow it to be that. I'm not going to see it as that until I'm done with the way I do see it now. And I'm not going to be done with the way I do see it now until I can admit to myself that that's actually how I see it. Forget the course. Put it down. How do I feel? Am I totally passionate about my life? Am I totally joyous all the time? Am I laughing at my illusions? Or am I still judging and holding grievances? Am I still finding disappointment and despair? Am I looking in the mirror thinking there's a new wrinkle? You know? So it's like every one of us has our catalyst. Every single one of us has that moment that comes along where the light bulb goes on and we're like, holy cow, I just saw myself doing this. Right? That's what we're trying to catch. That's what we're trying to see ourselves in the act of. We're trying to catch ourselves with our own hand in the cookie jar. It's not a matter if I complete the workbook, I'll be done. If I just get through this course, that'll be it. That's all I have to do. It's like, no, the application is where it's at. Right? When Jesus tells me I'm God's son, it's like, holy crap, I don't know about that. Jesus was perfect, and look what they did to him. I don't even know if I want to be God's son. That was always Ted's thing, you know. It's like, no, I don't know what God's son is. And if you have a female form, if your avatar is of the female orientation, you're going to be like, God's son, what is that? What about God's daughter? I get those all the time. Like, it just drives me bananas. You know, it's like that gender comes into the associate, but it's like, anyway, that's the way it goes. You know, it's like, I had one this week where, I don't know if I should talk about this one. Hang on. Oh, it's okay. I had one this week where I had to go right back to the very beginning. Like, this person wasn't even reading the course, had never heard of the course, the whole thing. And I had to go right back, and try to imagine how it is to have that human conscious association that, and it, like, I'm keeping my finger here, that is presenting me these ideas, which to me is completely like, what the hell are you even talking about? You know, I had no clue what they were talking about, literally had no clue, because my mind doesn't work that way anymore. It was like somebody was speaking to me in a language I didn't understand, and I had to go right back and allow whatever they were saying to be true, even though I didn't know what it was. I mean, that was from the reversal. You know, with the course, Jesus is saying, and we have to allow it to be true without knowing what it was. I'm so far down the rabbit hole with the course that when somebody comes up to me that's just like an NPC in the game, it's like, I really don't know anymore. You know, that takes for you to find your blocks. I guarantee you there's a penny drop moment. There is a light bulb waiting to go on. And we're going to do that in our meditation now. All right? We're going to take, if it doesn't come up for you as the first block, that's fine, doesn't matter. But I'm just going to use the first block. All right? It could be that you think the body's valuable for something, what it gets you, you know, or what you can do with it, whatever. The block that comes up for you may be that you're afraid of death, or that you're afraid of God, which is self-love, right? So close your eyes.